The orbital station was built by three different alien civilizations who could not agree on gravity, light levels, or even how quiet a room should be. The final design was a compromise that annoyed everyone equally. Vincent considered that a diplomatic success. He sat at the long negotiation table, shoulders tight, eyes locked on his glowing tablet. The artificial gravity hummed softly under his feet. It wasn't strong enough to hurt, but it was just uncomfortable enough to remind him that he was far from home. Across from him sat Ambassador Kareth. At first glance, she looked almost human. She had the same calm posture, the same steady breathing, the same controlled expression. But her long, elegant ears curved slightly backward from her head. Over the months of negotiation, Vincent had learned something important. Her ears told the truth long before her voice did. If they tilted inward, she was amused. If they angled back sharply, she was irritated. If they stayed perfectly still, that was the dangerous one. "We are not rejecting the corridor proposal," Kareth said smoothly. "We are rejecting your current definition of shared oversight." Vincent nodded, scribbling notes he knew he wouldn't remember later. He had slept 4 hours in the last 2 days. One of those hours had included a dream where the negotiation table demanded voting rights. "Shared oversight," he replied carefully, "is a flexible concept, like time or budgets." A few delegates gave polite laughs. Humor was safest when aimed at ideas, not people. This was the 6th session today, or maybe the 5th. Time felt strange on the station. His brain felt stranger. Kareth's eyes narrowed slightly. "You appear tired." "That's the nicest version of that I've heard all week," said Vincent. "I assure you I am fully operational. Mostly." Her ears tilted inward just a little. Amusement. The talks continued. Trade routes, defense clauses, star map ethics. Vincent responded almost automatically, relying on training while his exhausted brain ran a few seconds behind. Finally, Kareth finished outlining her delegation's position. She gave a small nod. "That is our stance." Vincent leaned forward. He had rehearsed this response. He knew exactly what to say. He opened his mouth. His tired mind reached for a familiar phrase, something soft, something calming, something his grandmother used whenever conversations became tense. "All right, I understand, my love, but—" The universe stopped. Not paused, stopped. The translation field did its job perfectly, brutally perfectly. The words echoed through the chamber in every known language. Vincent felt his stomach drop as realization struck halfway through the sentence. Kareth froze. Her ears snapped backward. Every delegate went silent. Someone dropped a stylus. The clatter sounded louder than an explosion. Vincent's brain offered helpful options. Pretend to faint, blame the translator, request immediate exile. He smiled weakly instead. Nothing after that would help. Kareth inhaled slowly. When she spoke, her voice was calm, too calm. "Negotiator Vincent," she said formally, "I believe we require a private discussion." Her ears angled forward. That was new. "Yes," Vincent replied too quickly. "Absolutely. Very privately." The doors slid open. Whispering erupted behind them as they stepped into the corridor. Vincent's heart pounded in his ears. He had survived ceasefires, first contact dinners, even accidentally insulting a hive mind collective. But this felt different. The corridor lighting dimmed automatically as they walked. The silence felt heavy. They entered a small consultation room, the door sealed shut behind them. Kareth turned to face him. Up close, she looked composed, but her ears were restless, making small adjustments. Vincent cleared his throat. "Ambassador, I want to apologize immediately, repeatedly, and possibly forever." "What you said," she replied evenly, "is a formal bonding declaration in my culture." Vincent blinked. What?" "Yes," she continued calmly, "publicly spoken,
witnessed, translated. His face drained of color. I call vending machines that when they give me the right snack. It's casual where I'm from. Her expression shifted slightly. You court food dispensers? Only the reliable ones. Silence. Then, her ears tilted inward, just slightly. Vincent wasn't sure if that made it better or worse. In my culture, she said carefully, such words carry legal, emotional, and social implications. Legal. Vincent swallowed. If spoken publicly, she continued, it requires acknowledgement. He stared at her. Define acknowledgement. She held his gaze. Acceptance, refusal, or ceremonial deferral. Ceremonial? He whispered. There is a fire component in one version. Vincent's eyes widened. I would like it officially recorded that I did not propose with fire. And for the first time since the disaster began, Kareth laughed. Soft, brief, genuine. Her ears tilted inward fully. Something in the room shifted. She became serious again, but not distant. I will dismiss it publicly as a translation anomaly, she said. It is the least destabilizing solution. Relief hit him so fast, he nearly sat down on the floor. Thank you. She studied him quietly. However, of course there was a however. Privately, she continued, I must ask you something. He braced himself. Were your words entirely meaningless? The question hit harder than anything else that day. He opened his mouth to joke. He didn't. Instead, he hesitated. And that hesitation said more than any translation error ever could. Kareth's ears stilled. Exhaustion lowers defenses, she said softly. It reveals what reason keeps hidden. Vincent looked down at his shaking hands. He wasn't sure anymore whether he had made a mistake or spoken a truth he hadn't admitted to himself. And that realization was far more terrifying than the silence in the negotiation chamber. Was it really just exhaustion, or had Vincent accidentally said the one thing neither of them was ready to face?
The room felt smaller after her question. Were your words entirely meaningless? Vincent stared at the table between them as if it might provide a diplomatic escape route. It didn't. The small consultation room hummed softly, the walls glowing with neutral light. Outside, entire civilizations were waiting for treaty updates. Inside, it was just the two of them, and one dangerous question. He let out a slow breath. I regret the timing, he said carefully. The setting, the audience, the fire implications. A faint flicker of amusement touched her ears. But the words? She pressed. He swallowed. No, he admitted quietly. I don't regret the words. The silence that followed was not cold this time. It was alive. Kareth studied him with that focused stillness he had come to respect. Her species listened differently than humans did. It wasn't just about sound. It was posture, pulse, micro-movements. She was measuring him with precision. You are afraid, she observed. Absolutely, Vincent replied. This feels like negotiating without a script. You negotiate impossibilities daily. Yes, he said, but this isn't about territory or star lanes. This is personal. There's no backup team for that. Her ears angled forward, attentive. In my culture, she said slowly, bonding is not impulsive. It follows observation, trust, shared purpose, sometimes years. That sounds healthy, Vincent muttered. We usually just panic and hope for the best. You do many things by accident, she said calmly. That's our brand. Despite himself, he smiled, and this time she did too. She stepped closer, not invading his space, but narrowing the distance slightly. The shift was small, but intentional. When you spoke, several members of my delegation initiated protocol scans. For what?
he asked weakly. To determine whether I was required to respond immediately. His stomach flipped again. And if you had been? I would have had 3 choices: acceptance, refusal, or ceremonial delay. Still with the ceremony, he muttered. Her eyes glinted faintly. Yes, still with the ceremony. He ran a hand through his hair. I cannot believe one exhausted sentence triggered diplomatic emergency procedures. Words are rarely small, she replied. That landed. Vincent leaned back slightly. Okay, let's be honest then. I admire you deeply, professionally, personally. I didn't plan to feel that. It just happened somewhere between trade clauses and your very sharp comments about human bureaucracy. Her ears tilted inward again. You notice much, she said. I notice when you're irritated before you speak. I notice when you let someone win a minor point so you can secure a bigger one later. I notice when you pretend not to be tired. That last one surprised her. Her ears shifted slightly. You are observant, she said softly. Only when it matters. Silence settled between them again, but it felt warmer now, less like a crisis, more like a crossroads. Kareth walked toward the wall panel and placed her palm against it. The hum in the room shifted tone. Privacy mode. Vincent blinked. That sounds serious. It is, she said. She turned back to him, posture less formal now. If we allow this to exist, it must not destabilize our work. The corridor agreement affects millions. I know, Vincent replied immediately. My responsibility comes first. She watched him closely. I believe you. And that meant more than he expected. She stepped closer again, not touching, just near. This is not a proposal, she clarified. Good, he said quickly, because I'm still recovering from the last accidental one. Her ears flicked inward. It is a consideration, she finished. He nodded slowly. I can handle consideration. Then answer plainly, she said. If today had occurred privately, would your words have changed? That question was sharper than the first. He thought about it, about the months of long sessions, the shared glances across tense tables, the way she cut through arguments with calm precision, the way she laughed just now. No, he said quietly, they wouldn't have changed. Her ears stilled. And you? He asked before he could stop himself. The boldness surprised both of them. She did not answer immediately. In my culture, she said, one does not begin observation without reason. His heart thudded. So you've been observing? For some time. He let out a shaky breath. That's either very reassuring or very intimidating. Both may be true. For the first time since the disaster, Vincent felt something steady beneath the chaos. Not certainty, not safety, possibility. Kareth stepped back slightly, restoring a more professional distance. We will return to the chamber, she said. Publicly, nothing has changed. And privately? She met his eyes. Privately, we will proceed carefully. Careful is good, he said. Yes, careful is wise. She moved toward the door, then paused. One more clarification, she added. Vincent tensed. Yes? Do not address me with that term again. He nodded immediately. Understood, never again. Her ears tilted inward for just a fraction of a second. Not accidentally. The door slid open. The noise of the station rushed back in. Whispers, shifting feet, the distant hum of diplomacy recovering from scandal. Vincent straightened his jacket. They stepped back into the negotiation chamber side by side, both perfectly composed. But something had shifted. Not visible, not documented, not translated. And as the delegates watched them carefully, Vincent realized the real negotiation had only just begun. They had agreed to proceed carefully, but could two diplomats really separate a fragile new emotion from the fate of an interstellar treaty?
When Vincent and Careth re-entered the negotiation chamber, the air felt different. It wasn't hostile. It was curious. Delegates who had argued fiercely an hour ago now watched them with the focused attention usually reserved for unstable technology or unexplained cosmic events. Vincent adjusted his collar and sat down, determined to look like a man who had not just accidentally triggered a cross-cultural bonding protocol. Across the table, Careth resumed her seat with flawless composure. Her ears rested in a neutral position, calm, controlled, diplomatic. If anyone hadn't witnessed the incident, they would never suspect anything had happened. But everyone had witnessed it. "We will proceed," Careth said evenly, "with the revised oversight structure." Vincent nodded. Yes, revised, carefully revised. A few members of the third delegation, the tall avian species with too many blinking eyes, tilted their heads in unison. He had no idea what that meant, but it felt judgmental. The talks resumed. Trade metrics floated across holographic displays. Legal language twisted into careful shapes. Defense clauses were examined word by word. Vincent focused harder than he had all week. Strangely, his mind felt clearer now. Maybe because the worst had already happened. Or maybe because something unspoken between him and Careth had been acknowledged instead of ignored. At one point, he almost missed a numerical adjustment in a resource sharing clause. Careth corrected it smoothly. He glanced up and mouthed, "Thank you." Her ears flicked inward just slightly. A private moment, hidden in plain sight. When the session finally paused for recess, Vincent escaped to the refreshment alcove. The station offered beverages optimized for 14 different biological systems. He selected something labeled hydration adjacent and immediately regretted it. The liquid fizzed aggressively. "This seems unsafe," he muttered. "Still alive?" He nearly choked. Careth stood beside him, holding a small cup filled with something softly glowing blue. "Define alive," Vincent replied, coughing. "My drink is attempting to evolve." She examined his cup. "You selected reactive minerals." "I like to live dangerously." Her ears tilted inward again. "I noticed," she said. They stood side by side, watching various delegates argue quietly across the hall. Without the negotiation table between them, the space felt different, more personal, less structured. "I reviewed the incident reports," Careth said calmly. Vincent groaned. "There are reports?" 17, she replied. He closed his eyes. "Of course there are." 3 theories have emerged. One suggests deliberate cultural provocation. One suggests psychological fatigue. One proposes strategic emotional manipulation. Vincent stared at her. "I wore this suit because it was clean. That is the full extent of my strategy." Her ears tilted inward. "I informed them it was fatigue and that the matter was resolved." Relief softened his shoulders. "Thank you," he said sincerely. Clarity benefits stability. The artificial lighting in the corridor shifted subtly, simulating a distant sunset. Through a viewport at the end of the hall, stars stretched endlessly. Vincent looked at them. "Do you ever think," he said quietly, "that inconvenient truths are usually the important ones?" Careth considered that. "In my culture, inconvenience often signals significance." "That explains a lot," he murmured. The recess ended too quickly. Back inside the chamber, the negotiations continued with steady progress. The corridor treaty was closer than ever. Clauses aligned, language softened, compromises formed. Vincent felt the familiar exhaustion settling in, but beneath it was something steadier now. Later, long after the session adjourned, he found himself standing alone in the observation ring.
The station lights dimmed slightly, mimicking night. Ships drifted slowly beyond the glass. "You favor this location." He didn't jump this time. Karef joined him at the viewport, hands folded behind her back. "It's quiet," Vincent said, "and it reminds me the universe keeps moving, no matter what embarrassing thing I do." Her ears angled slightly outward. "I have been considering what it means to proceed," she said. His heartbeat picked up. "Proceed how?" "Carefully, with boundaries, with honesty, without assumptions." He nodded slowly. "That sounds manageable." "You negotiate impossibilities daily." "Yes, but this feels more fragile." "Fragility does not equal weakness," she replied. They stood in silence for a while, watching a distant cargo vessel slip into faster-than-light travel. Space rippled briefly, then settled again. "For what it's worth," Vincent said quietly, "I'm glad it happened." Her ears tilted inward. "So am I," she admitted. That simple answer warmed something inside him. No declarations followed, no dramatic gestures, just two diplomats standing side by side, acknowledging a possibility neither had planned. But while they found calm in the quiet corner of the station, elsewhere, rumors were accelerating. In diplomatic channels, in private communications, in delegation reports. And Vincent had a growing suspicion that their careful approach might soon be tested by forces far louder than accidental words. They agreed to move carefully in private, but what happens when private feelings become very public rumors across the station?
The rumors started the next morning. Vincent knew before anyone told him. His tablet began vibrating before he even finished his first cup of safe, non-evolving coffee. Message notifications stacked on top of each other in rapid succession. Human Diplomatic Corps, request clarification. Cultural Advisory Board, urgent inquiry regarding bonding terminology. Personal message from supervisor. Please tell me this is a translation glitch. He closed his eyes. It was one sentence, he muttered. One very tired sentence. Another message appeared, trending across Interstellar media channels. He did not open that one. A soft chime echoed at his door. "Enter," he said, already knowing who it would be. Kareth stepped inside, posture formal again. Today she wore full ambassadorial attire, layered and precise. Her ears were steady, but there was a faint tightness in her shoulders. "You have seen the communications?" she asked. "I've seen enough to consider moving to an uninhabited moon," Vincent replied. Her ears flicked inward briefly. "That may complicate the corridor agreement." "Right, priorities." She stepped further into the room. "My delegation has received inquiries from 3 allied systems," she said calmly. "They are concerned about potential political entanglement." Vincent winced. "That sounds dramatic." "It is," she confirmed. He rubbed his face. "Okay, strategy. We stick to the official explanation. Fatigue, translation nuance. Case closed." "Yes," she agreed. "Publicly." "And privately?" he asked carefully. Her gaze held steady. "Privately, we continue as discussed." Something in his chest loosened. "Good," he said quietly. But before relief could fully settle, his tablet chimed again, this time with a live request. His supervisor's face appeared in a holographic projection above the desk, stern, exhausted, deeply unimpressed. "Vincent," she said flatly, "explain." He straightened automatically. It was an exhaustion-related linguistic misfire, cultural nuance amplified by translation. She stared at him. "Are you emotionally compromised?" He hesitated. That half-second pause was dangerous. "I am professionally focused. The treaty remains secure." She studied him longer than comfortable. "The corridor agreement must not be jeopardized." "It won't be," he said firmly. After a tense moment, she nodded once. "See that it isn't." The projection disappeared. Vincent exhaled slowly. "That went well," he muttered. "You did not deny emotional involvement," Kareth observed. He looked at her. "I didn't confirm it either." Her ears angled slightly forward. "You are choosing honesty without confession." "I'm choosing survival," he corrected gently. She considered that. Outside the station windows, distant ships moved like quiet witnesses. "There is another complication," she said. Vincent braced himself. "Of course there is. One of my senior advisors believes the incident may strengthen our alliance." He blinked. "What?" "In my culture, public bonding language suggests deep trust. Some interpret it as symbolic unity." He stared at her. "So, accidentally calling you something intimate might improve diplomacy?" "It is being debated." He laughed by himself. "I can't decide if that's comforting or terrifying." "Both may be true," she said softly. A pause settled between them. Then she added more quietly, "However, there are others who believe I am distracted." That bothered him more than the rumors. "You're not distracted," he said immediately. Her ears shifted toward him. "I am capable of professional separation." "I know, and I would never want to be the reason anyone questions that." Her ears stilled for a moment. "That matters," she said. The tension in the room eased slightly. Vincent stood and moved toward the viewport. Below, the station's curved surface glowed softly against the black of space. "Do you regret it?" he asked suddenly. She didn't answer right away. "No," she said at last. The simplicity of it struck him. "Even with all this?" he asked. "Yes." Her honesty steadied him. A notification flashed again across his tablet. He glanced down. Interstellar media analysis. Was the corridor treaty sealed with more than diplomacy? He groaned. "They're turning this into a narrative. Your species values narrative, not when I'm the headline." Her ears tilted inward slightly. "You are adapting." "To what?" "To visibility." He looked at her. "I didn't ask for visibility." "Few who receive it do." That truth lingered. After a moment, she stepped closer, not touching but near enough that he could feel her presence grounding him. "If this escalates, we may need to demonstrate professional distance publicly." His stomach tightened. "Distance?" he repeated. "Yes." He nodded slowly. "I can do that." She searched his face. "Can you?" "I negotiate ceasefires between hostile systems. I can manage eye contact." Her ears tilted inward slightly, but there was concern beneath it. "Remember," she said gently, "careful does not mean denial." He met her gaze. "And honest doesn't mean reckless." A quiet understanding passed between them. Outside, the station lights brightened slightly as artificial morning shifted toward midday. The galaxy was watching. Rumors were spreading. Political pressure was building. And for the first time, Vincent realized this wasn't just about a misplaced word anymore. It was about whether something fragile could survive under scrutiny. If public distance becomes necessary, will they be strong enough to protect the treaty without losing what quietly began between them?
By midday, the station felt different. Not louder, just more aware. Delegates who had once argued about trade percentages now watched Vincent and Kareth with subtle curiosity. Conversations paused when they entered a room. Glances lasted a second too long. It wasn't open gossip. It was observation. And observation, Vincent knew, could be more dangerous. "We will demonstrate professional distance," Kareth had said. Now they had to actually do it. The next negotiation session began under brighter lights than usual. The final adjustments to the corridor treaty were being reviewed before the official signing. Vincent took his seat. Across from him, Kareth did the same. No lingering glances, no quiet smiles, no shared private expressions. Just diplomacy. Her ears remained perfectly neutral. It felt unnatural. He spoke first, voice steady. Regarding the rotational oversight schedule, we propose a minor timing adjustment to accommodate trade surges. She responded smoothly. Acceptable, provided emergency arbitration rights remain shared. Clear, efficient, controlled. They moved like seasoned professionals who had never stood side by side at a viewport discussing inconvenient truths. And maybe that was the point. Halfway through the session, one delegate, a sharp-eyed representative from a neighboring system, leaned forward. "Ambassador Kareth," he said, tone carefully polite, "has the recent cultural exchange between you and negotiator Vincent influenced your delegation's flexibility?" The room went still. Vincent felt heat rise in his chest, but forced himself to remain calm. Kareth did not hesitate. "No," she said evenly. "Flexibility emerged from strategic necessity, not personal interaction." Her voice was flawless. Her ears did not move. The delegate nodded slowly. "Of course." The conversation continued. But something inside Vincent tightened. Later, during a short recess, he stood alone near a data display, pretending to review figures he already knew by memory. "You handled that well." He didn't turn around. "Did I?" he asked quietly. "Yes," Kareth replied, standing at a careful distance behind him. "You did not react emotionally." He let out a soft breath. "I wanted to." "I know." Silence stretched between them, measured, deliberate. He turned slightly, not enough to draw attention, just enough to see her from the corner of his eye. "Does it bother you, having to pretend?" Her ears shifted just a fraction before returning to neutral. "It does not feel like pretending. It feels like protecting something fragile." That word again, fragile. Vincent nodded slowly. "I can do distance," he said, "but I don't want distance to become default." "It will not," she replied. He believed her, but belief and reality were not always aligned in politics. The session resumed. The final clauses were approved. Legal teams confirmed language alignment. Arbitration protocols were locked into place. The corridor agreement was hours away from official signing. And yet, the tension in the room had nothing to do with trade routes. As the delegates filtered out at the end of the day, Vincent felt exhaustion pressing down again. Not the foggy, careless exhaustion from before, a sharper kind. Controlled restraint was more tiring than chaos. He found himself back at the observation ring again that evening. He didn't expect her this time, but she came anyway. "You seek consistency in location," she observed gently. "It's the only place no one analyzes my facial expressions." She stepped beside him. Not touching, not too close, just enough. "They will continue to watch for a time," she said. "I know. And eventually," she continued, "their attention will shift." "To the next scandal?" he asked. "Yes." He gave a quiet laugh. "That's comforting." They stood in silence, watching ships depart toward newly negotiated routes. "You were firm earlier when that delegate questioned you. It was necessary." "I know," he said quickly. "I just didn't like hearing it framed that way." "As weakness?" she asked. "As distraction?" Her ears softened slightly. "You are not a distraction." He looked at her fully now. "Neither are you." The words carried weight, no translation field needed. After a moment, she spoke again. "This phase is temporary." "The distance?" "Yes." "And after?" She met his gaze. "And after, we determine whether careful can become something stronger." His heart skipped. Stronger sounds risky. "It is," she said calmly. He smiled faintly. "Good." For the first time all day, her ears tilted inward without restraint. Warm, honest. No audience, no politics, just possibility.
But as they stood there, unaware of who might be watching from the station's many quiet corners, a new message was already circulating through diplomatic channels. Not about bonding, not about scandal, about leverage, and whether personal connection, real or rumored, could be used as a tool. Vincent had survived embarrassment, he had survived scrutiny, but manipulation? That was a different battlefield entirely. If someone tries to use their connection as political leverage, will Vincent and Kareth protect each other or become vulnerabilities in a much bigger game?
The message reached Vincent at 0217 station time. He was half asleep, staring at the artificial stars projected across his ceiling when his tablet chimed with a priority alert. He groaned and rolled over. Confidential advisory notice. Potential exploitation risk identified. He sat up immediately. That wording was never good. He opened the message. A neutral diplomatic analyst had flagged increased private communications between two minor allied systems. The topic was not the Corridor Treaty. It was him. Specifically, whether his rumored connection with Ambassador Kareth could be strategically influenced to gain concessions in future trade discussions. Vincent stared at the screen. "So now I'm a pressure point," he muttered. Another message followed seconds later. From Kareth. "We must speak. Now." He didn't hesitate. He opened the secure channel. Her image appeared almost instantly. She looked composed, but her ears were angled slightly back. Concern. "You received the advisory," she said. "Yes." Silence lingered for half a second. "They believe I may be influenced," she continued calmly, "or that you may be." Vincent exhaled sharply. "That's insulting." "It is predictable," she corrected. He ran a hand through his hair. "I would never compromise the treaty." "I know," she said. "And you wouldn't either." "No." The certainty in her voice steadied him. Still, the situation felt different now. This wasn't gossip. It was strategy. "They are testing perception," she said. "If they can create doubt about our objectivity, they weaken our position." "So what do we do?" he asked. Her ears shifted slightly as she fought. "We respond with strength," she said, "and clarity." He frowned. "Define clarity." "We demonstrate unity in negotiation, but distance in personal matters." "That sounds complicated." "It is," she agreed. He leaned back against a wall of his quarters. "I hate that something genuine can be turned into a tactical tool." She studied him through the projection. "In diplomacy," she said softly, "anything visible becomes usable." He swallowed. "So we become less visible." "Yes." The word landed heavy. There it was again. Distance. But this time it wasn't about rumors. It was about defense. "Are you sure?" he asked quietly. Her gaze didn't waver. "Yes." He nodded slowly. "Then we do it properly. No hesitation, no mixed signals." "Agreed." They ended the call. Vincent didn't sleep after that. The next day, the signing chamber buzzed with anticipation. Media drones hovered at a respectful distance. Delegates prepared official statements. Vincent stood at the central table, reviewing the final treaty document. Across from him, Kareth did the same. Professional, precise, unshakable. Their eye contact lasted no longer than necessary. When they spoke, it was formal. When they moved, it was measured. The atmosphere shifted. Observers who had once whispered about bonding now whispered about control. And that was exactly what they needed. Midway through final confirmations, one delegate tried again. "Negotiator Vincent," the delegate asked smoothly,
Are you confident that emotional factors have not influenced the final arbitration structure? The room went still. Vincent didn't hesitate. My confidence, he said clearly, is based on documented revisions, mutual compromise, and verified strategic benefit for all parties involved. His voice was steady, unemotional, controlled. Kareth added calmly, "Our cooperation is rooted in logic and shared purpose. No warmth, no softness, just fact." The delegate leaned back, satisfied or at least unable to push further. The signing proceeded. Biometric seals confirmed. Digital signatures locked. The Corridor Agreement became official. Applause filled the chamber. History recorded the moment. Vincent allowed himself one glance across the table. Kareth's ears remained neutral, but just before she looked away, a tiny flick inward, so small no one else would notice. He almost smiled. Almost. Hours later, after celebrations began and media attention shifted elsewhere, Vincent found himself alone in the observation ring again. The station lights reflected faintly on the glass. He heard her approach before she spoke. "We succeeded," she said quietly. "Yes," he replied. He kept his gaze on the stars. "Publicly," she added. He nodded. "Publicly." Silence followed. Not tense, not fragile, just heavy with unspoken restraint. "Does it trouble you?" she asked. "The distance?" "Yes." He considered the question carefully. "It doesn't trouble me," he said honestly, "but it reminds me that this isn't simple." "It was never simple," she replied. He leaned back against the wall of his quarters. "I hate that something genuine can be turned into a tactical tool." She studied him through the projection. "In diplomacy," she said softly, "anything visible becomes usable." He swallowed. "So we become less visible." "Yes." The word landed heavy. There it was again. Distance. But this time it wasn't about rumors. It was about defense. "Are you sure?" he asked quietly. Her gaze didn't waver. "Yes." He nodded slowly. "Then we do it properly. No hesitation, no mixed signals." Agreed. They ended the call. Vincent didn't sleep after that. The next day, the signing chamber buzzed with anticipation. Media drones hovered at a respectful distance. Delegates prepared official statements. Vincent stood at the central table, reviewing the final treaty document. Across from him, Kareth did the same. Professional, precise, unshakable. Their eye contact lasted no longer than necessary. When they spoke, it was formal. When they moved, it was measured. The atmosphere shifted. Observers who had once whispered about bonding now whispered about control. And that was exactly what they needed. Midway through final confirmations, one delegate tried again. "Negotiator Vincent," the delegate asked smoothly, "are you confident that emotional factors have not influenced the final arbitration structure?" The room went still. Vincent didn't hesitate. "My confidence," he said clearly, "is based on documented revisions, mutual compromise, and verified strategic benefit for all parties involved." His voice was steady, unemotional, controlled. Kareth added calmly, "Our cooperation is rooted in logic and shared purpose. No warmth, no softness, just fact." The delegate leaned back, satisfied or at least unable to push further. The signing proceeded. Biometric seals confirmed. Digital signatures locked. The Corridor Agreement became official. Applause filled the chamber. History recorded the moment. Vincent allowed himself one glance across the table. Kareth's ears remained neutral, but just before she looked away, a tiny flick inward. So small no one else would notice. He almost smiled. Almost. Hours later, after celebrations began and media attention shifted elsewhere, Vincent found himself alone in the observation ring again. The station lights reflected faintly on the glass. He heard her approach before she spoke. "We succeeded," she said quietly. "Yes," he replied. He kept his gaze on the stars. "Publicly," she added. He nodded. "Publicly." Silence followed. Not tense, not fragile, just heavy with unspoken restraint. "Does it trouble you?" she asked. "The distance?" "Yes." He considered the question carefully. "It doesn't trouble me," he said honestly, "but it reminds me that this isn't simple." "It was never simple," she replied. He leaned back against the wall of his quarters. "I hate that something genuine can be turned into a tactical tool." She studied him through the projection. "In diplomacy," she said softly, "anything visible becomes usable." He swallowed. "So we become less visible." "Yes." The word landed heavy. There it was again. Distance. But this time it wasn't about rumors.
The corridor treaty was officially complete. Ships had already begun using the new route. Trade signals flowed smoothly. Political tension between systems had dropped to the lowest levels recorded in years. From the outside, everything was perfect. Inside, Vincent felt anything but steady. Careful had worked. Careful had protected the agreement. Careful had silenced the rumors. But careful was exhausting. 3 days passed without a single private conversation between him and Kareth. Not because they avoided each other, because they were disciplined. Every interaction was structured, every exchange brief, every glance measured. It felt like holding his breath for hours at a time. On the 4th day, Vincent stood in a strategy briefing room with representatives from 2 minor systems who had originally questioned his objectivity. They were polite now, respectful, even impressed. "You demonstrated remarkable professionalism under scrutiny," one of them said. Vincent nodded. "Thank you." But the compliment felt hollow. Professionalism had cost something. Later that evening, he received notice that his departure shuttle would arrive within 48 hours. 48 hours. The number echoed in his mind. He found himself walking the long curve of the station's inner ring without really deciding to. The artificial lights were dimmed for evening cycle. The station hummed quietly around him. "You are leaving soon?" He didn't turn immediately. "I was wondering when you'd mention it," he said gently. Kareth stepped beside him, not too close, not too far. "Your departure schedule," she continued. "Your people requested immediate debriefing. They want to make sure I don't accidentally propose to anyone else," he replied. Her ears flicked inward faintly. "I suspect they are satisfied with your performance." He let out a slow breath. "And you?" She paused. "I am satisfied with the treaty." "That's not what I meant." Silence, longer this time. Finally, she answered. "I am evaluating." He smiled softly. "You're very good at that. It is necessary." They walked slowly along the curve of the ring. Stars shimmered beyond the glass. "Do you regret keeping distance?" he asked quietly. "No," she said. "It preserved stability." "That's not what I asked." Her ears shifted slightly. "No," she repeated, softer this time. "I do not regret it, but I recognize its cost." That honesty hit deeper than any dramatic confession could have. He stopped walking. She stopped too. "We were careful. We were responsible." "Yes, but responsibility doesn't make things easier." "No." The air between them felt charged again, not with scandal, not with pressure,
but with something simpler. Truth. "You're leaving," she said. "Yes. And distance will no longer be performance." That landed hard. He hadn't let himself think that far ahead. When he returned to Earth, their time zones would differ, their responsibilities would multiply. Public scrutiny might fade, but physical distance would be real. "Careful won't mean the same thing," he admitted. "No," she agreed. He looked at her fully now. "So we need to decide something." Her ears angled forward. "Yes." Was this just situational? Shared stress, long hours, political pressure? And if it was, he asked carefully, then we let it end cleanly, no damage, no regret. She studied him in silence. And if it was not, she asked. His heartbeat quickened. Then we stop pretending it's fragile. Her ears stilled completely. "You propose abandoning caution," she observed. "No," he said. "I propose choosing it for the right reasons, not because we're afraid." A long pause followed. The station lights shifted slightly as artificial night deepened. "In my culture, bonding is deliberate. It is chosen. It is not drift." "I know. And once chosen, it is not easily undone." "I know that too." The weight of the moment pressed down gently but firmly. "You would return to your world." "Yes." "And I would remain here." "Yes." "Communication would be limited." "Probably." "Political tension may rise again." "Almost definitely." She held his gaze. "Do you still wish to proceed?" There it was. Not accidental, not emotional overflow, deliberate. Vincent didn't rush his answer. "I don't want something temporary," he quietly said. "I don't want this to be a story about exhaustion and proximity." Her ears shifted subtly. "I want something intentional," he continued, "even if it's difficult. Difficult is expected." He let out a small breath. "Then, yes," he said, "I still wish to proceed." Silence. Then she stepped closer, not dramatically, not urgently, just enough to close the distance they had maintained for days. "In that case," she said calmly, "careful will change form." He frowned slightly. "How?" "It will become commitment," she replied. The words settled between them. Commitment. Not impulsive, not reckless, chosen. He smiled faintly. "That sounds terrifying." Her ears tilted inward. Yes, but she did not step back, and neither did he. They stood there, no longer performing distance, no longer protecting something fragile, instead protecting something real. Yet Vincent couldn't ignore one final truth. 48 hours. Soon the real test would begin, not under scrutiny, not under rumor, but across light years. And distance in space was far harder than distance in a room.
48 hours felt shorter than 48 minutes. The station seemed to know he was leaving. Corridors felt more familiar. The hum of artificial gravity sounded softer. Even the lights in the observation ring seemed warmer. Vincent spent the morning in formal debrief sessions. Reports were reviewed, strategy decisions were archived. His supervisors congratulated him on securing the corridor agreement. "You handled political pressure exceptionally well," one senior official said. Vincent nodded. "Thank you." They praised his composure, his discipline, his restraint. None of them mentioned the word that had started everything, but it lingered anyway. By late afternoon, his belongings were packed. The room felt temporary again, like it had on his first day. A soft chime sounded at his door. He didn't hesitate this time. "Come in." Kareth entered, not in full ambassador attire, but not informal either. Balanced, intentional. Her ears were relaxed. "You are prepared," she observed. "Mostly," he said. "I left the reactive mineral drink behind." Her ears tilted inward slightly. "A wise decision." Silence followed. Not awkward, just aware. I reviewed long-distance communication protocols, she said. Secure channels, frequency allowances, political transparency requirements. That sounds very official, he replied gently. It must be. He nodded. He understood. Careful had evolved. It wasn't about hiding anymore. It was about building something sustainable. I don't want this to be dramatic, he said quietly. No promises we can't realistically keep. Agreed, she said. But I also don't want it to fade just because it's inconvenient. Her gaze softened. Inconvenience, she reminded him, often signals importance. He smiled at that. You really believe that? Yes. She stepped closer, not rushed, not hesitant. Vincent, she said, using his name fully, without title, I do not engage in temporary bonds. His heart tightened. I know. If this proceeds, it proceeds with intent. I wouldn't want it any other way. A long pause stretched between them. Then she did something unexpected. She reached out, not dramatically, just a simple gesture, her hand extended toward him again, like in his quarters days earlier. He looked at it, then at her. This feels symbolic, he said softly. It is, she replied. He took her hand. This time, neither of them let go immediately. The contact wasn't electric like before. It was steady, grounded, real. You will return to Earth. Your responsibilities will expand. Yes. And you will be surrounded by voices offering alternatives. He exhaled lightly. You think I'm easily swayed? I think you are human. Fair. And you, he said gently, will remain here, managing political complexities I don't fully understand. Yes. Distance won't make that easier. No. They stood in silence, hands still lightly joined. So what does commitment look like? He asked. It looks like communication, honesty, patience, and choice. Choice? Yes, repeatedly. He nodded slowly. I can choose, he said. Her ears tilted inward warmly. Then we begin there. There were no dramatic declarations, no vows, no ceremonial fire, just two beings choosing something difficult and deliberate. Later, they walked together to the observation ring one final time before his departure. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the glass. You once said you were glad the incident happened, she reminded him. I was. And now? He looked at her. Now I'm grateful it forced honesty. Her ears stilled in quiet understanding. Exhaustion revealed what caution concealed. Yeah, he smiled. Next time I'll try honesty without the public chaos. That would be preferable. They stood side by side. No distance now, no performance, just presence. A shuttle announcement echoed softly through the station. Departure window confirmed. He felt the moment settle heavily in his chest. This is where the real test starts. Yes. Long-distance diplomacy, he added, with personal implications. He took a slow breath. I won't pretend this will be easy. I would not trust you if you did. He laughed quietly. Good. Another announcement sounded. He turned toward her fully. I'll call, he said. You will, she replied calmly. It wasn't a question. He hesitated, then stepped closer, careful but not restrained. Their foreheads nearly touched. Not a human gesture, not one from her culture either. Just something in between, a shared space. For the record, he murmured softly, the next time I use important words, it will be intentional. Her ears tilted inward, warm and steady. I will expect nothing less. The final boarding call echoed. He stepped back, not because he wanted to, because he had to.
And as he walked toward the docking corridor, he felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, not doubt, resolve. But even resolve can feel fragile when measured against light years. And as the shuttle doors prepared to close, one final uncertainty pressed into his thoughts. Would distance strengthen what they had chosen, or quietly test it in ways neither of them could predict? As Vincent leaves the station and light years stretch between them, can commitment survive when the universe itself becomes the distance?
The shuttle doors sealed with a quiet finality that felt louder than any explosion. Vincent stood strapped into his seat as the station slowly shrank outside the viewport. The curved structure that had held weeks of tension, diplomacy, embarrassment, and unexpected honesty drifted farther away with every passing second. He didn't look away, not until the jump sequence began. Stars stretched, space bent, and then Earth. The debriefing started immediately. Conference rooms, strategic reviews, political analysis panels, media containment planning. Vincent answered questions for hours. How did the corridor negotiations succeed? What resistance did you encounter? Was there any inappropriate personal influence involved? That last question was always phrased differently, but it was always there. No, he answered calmly each time. The agreement was built on mutual strategic benefit and trust. Trust. He chose that word carefully. Late that night, back in his apartment, the silence felt strange. No station hum, no artificial gravity buzz, no alien lighting cycles. Just Earth. Familiar, comfortable, distant. He stared at his communicator for a long moment before activating the secure channel. It connected after 3 seconds. 3 long seconds. Her image appeared, clear, steady. You arrived safely, she observed. Yes. Her ears were relaxed. That is good. There was a small delay in the signal, not large, but noticeable. A reminder. I didn't expect Earth gravity to feel this heavy, he admitted. Emotional or physical? She asked. Both. Her ears tilted inward faintly. Silence followed. Not awkward, just aware. How is the station? He asked. Operational. Political reaction has stabilized. The corridor traffic is exceeding projections. He smiled softly. That's good. Yes. The conversation felt careful again, but different from before. Not protective, just unfamiliar. How was your debrief? He asked. Thorough, repetitive, suspicious. Her ears shifted slightly. They questioned your objectivity. They always do. And your response? I told the truth. She studied him quietly. That requires consistency. I know. Another brief delay in the transmission. He felt it more than heard it. This is strange, he admitted. Yes. Not bad, he added quickly. Just different. In my culture, distance is considered a test of intent. That sounds intimidating. It is meant to be. He leaned back in his chair. Then we passed the test. Her ears tilted inward gently. We begin the test, she corrected. Fair. Days turned into a rhythm. Scheduled calls, shared updates, professional discussions mixed with personal honesty. But distance had its own gravity. There were missed calls due to time differences, conversations cut short by urgent meetings, moments when Vincent stared at the communicator and wondered if light years were stronger than commitment. One evening, after a particularly long policy review session, he hesitated before initiating the call. What if this was too complicated? What if this only worked because they shared the same space? The channel activated before he finished doubting. I was about to contact you, she said. He blinked. Really? Yes. Her ears angled slightly forward. You appear unsettled. He laughed softly. Is it that obvious? Yes. He rubbed his neck. I'm adjusting. To distance? To not being in the same room, he admitted. It's harder than I expected. She nodded once. It is also harder than I anticipated. That honesty mattered. Do you regret choosing this? he asked quietly. Her ears stilled. No, not even a pause. Do you? She asked. He didn't hesitate. No. The word felt solid, not emotional, not dramatic, just true. Silence lingered, but it felt steadier now. You once said bonding in your culture is deliberate, he said softly. Yes. Does distance weaken that? No, she replied. It reveals whether it was real. He let that settle. Outside his apartment window, Earth's city lights glowed. Across space, the station's artificial stars glimmered. Two different skies, same choice. I don't want this to turn into something theoretical. I don't want us to become an idea instead of a reality. We will not, she said calmly. How can you be sure? Her ears tilted inward gently. Because we are both choosing. Choice. Repeatedly. Days became weeks. The corridor treaty strengthened alliances. Political noise faded. The rumors quieted. But distance remained. One night, as Vincent prepared to end a call, he hesitated. There's something I've been thinking about, he said. Her ears angled forward. Yes? When my next assignment comes, I can request location preference. She studied him carefully. You would request proximity. Would that be unwelcome? Silence. Not uncertain. Thoughtful. No, she said softly. His chest tightened, not with anxiety, but with relief. Then I'll make the request, he said. Her ears tilted inward fully. That would be intentional. He smiled. Exactly. They ended the call that night with something steadier than hope. A plan. But even plans could shift in diplomacy. Assignments changed. Politics evolved. Unexpected crises emerged. And as Vincent submitted his formal location request the next morning, he knew one thing clearly. The next phase would test not just distance, but patience.
Submitting the request was the easy part. Waiting was not. Vincent stood in the central diplomatic office on Earth, staring at the confirmation screen. Location preference request submitted. Processing time undetermined. Undetermined was a dangerous word in politics. It could mean days, it could mean months, or it could mean never. He leaned back in his chair and exhaled slowly. He had framed it professionally, citing the importance of continuity in corridor implementation, cultural understanding, and diplomatic stability. All true. None of it mentioned the real reason. That part didn't belong in official documents. The call connected later that evening. You submitted it, Kareth said without preamble. You already know? Information travels, she replied calmly. Her ears were neutral but attentive. I kept it professional, he assured her. I expected nothing less. He studied her expression through the faint signal delay. You don't seem surprised. I am not. He smiled slightly. Confident? No, she corrected. Prepared. For rejection? For possibility. That steadiness anchored him. Days passed. Earth assignments piled up. Policy revisions. Interstellar transport negotiations. Security briefings. Every time his communicator chimed, his pulse jumped. Every time it wasn't the answer, disappointment followed. He hadn't realized how much waiting could feel like orbit, close enough to see something clearly, but unable to land. One evening, after a particularly exhausting review session, he almost skipped their scheduled call. Almost, but commitment was repeated choice. He activated the channel. Her image appeared, slightly dimmer than usual. You are tired, she observed. So are you. Her ears flicked slightly. The corridor traffic has doubled. Adjustments are ongoing. Political pressure? Manageable. Silence settled for a moment. I keep thinking, he admitted, about how different this would be if I hadn't said that word. Her ears angled inward softly. Yes. Maybe we'd still be careful colleagues. Perhaps. He leaned back in his chair. Do you ever wish it had stayed that simple? She didn't answer immediately. No, she said at last. The simplicity of that answer steadied him again. Me neither,
he admitted. Another brief delay passed between them. I do not measure commitment by ease, she said quietly. Good, he replied, because this isn't easy. The days stretched. Then, the message arrived. Location assignment decision available. His hands actually trembled. He opened it immediately. The words blurred for half a second before sharpening into clarity. Approved. Assignment transferred to orbital station effective in 30 standard days. He laughed, loud, startled, relieved. 30 days. Not tomorrow, not instantly, but real. He activated the secure channel without hesitation. It connected. You received it, she said. Yes. Her ears were perfectly still. Then they tilted inward fully. Not subtle, not restrained, warm. It appears continuity is valued, she said calmly. You sound very diplomatic about this. It is appropriate. He grinned. You're allowed to sound happy. A pause. Then, I am. That was enough. 30 days felt different from undetermined. 30 days meant countdown, preparation, intent. But as relief settled, a quieter thought surfaced. Things will be different, he said. Yes. We won't have rumor shielding us. No. We won't have distance forcing discipline. No. He met her gaze. We'll just have us. Her ears stilled thoughtfully. That is more complex. He nodded. It is. Silence lingered, but not heavy, just aware of the shift ahead. In my culture, returning after distance strengthens evaluation. Evaluation, he repeated nervously. She tilted her head slightly. Of compatibility. He laughed. You make that sound like a strategic audit. It is. He shook his head, smiling. Good, I prefer a structured honesty. As do I. The next weeks passed quickly. Earth debriefings wrapped up, farewells were exchanged, preparations made. But one final complication surfaced before departure. A regional conflict near the corridor flared unexpectedly, small but politically sensitive. Vincent received urgent briefings. Your reassignment may require immediate involvement, his supervisor warned, meaning he wouldn't return quietly. He would return to crisis. He activated the channel again that night. There's tension near the outer corridor, he told her. Yes, she replied. We are monitoring it. If I arrive, I won't be stepping into calm. I did not expect calm, she said. He smiled faintly. Of course you didn't. Silence followed, not fearful, not hesitant, just aware. Are you prepared? She asked. For the crisis? He replied. For both. He paused, then answered honestly. Yes. Her ears tilted inward. Then we proceed. 30 days became 20. 20 became 10. The station grew closer with each passing cycle. But as Vincent packed again, this time with certainty, one final thought lingered. Distance had tested them. Waiting had tested them. Now, proximity would test them in a new way. Because it's one thing to choose each other across light years. It's another to build something real under the weight of daily reality. When Vincent returns to the station in the middle of rising tension, will commitment survive the pressure of crisis, or will reality prove harder than distance ever was?
The station looked the same. That was the first thing Vincent noticed as his shuttle approached the docking ring. Same curved structure, same artificial glow, same steady hum beneath the hull. But this time, he wasn't arriving as a negotiator sent to fix a crisis. He was returning, by choice, and stepping directly into another one. Reports had warned him. A minor territorial dispute between two outer systems was escalating near the corridor. Nothing catastrophic, not yet, but tensions were rising fast. The docking clamps locked into place with a heavy metallic sound. He took a breath. Round 2, he murmured. The doors opened. Station air rushed in.
And there she was, waiting at the end of the corridor. Not alone. 2 aides stood a respectful distance behind her, but clearly present for his arrival. Professional, composed. Her ears were neutral, but her eyes held something warmer. "Negotiator Vincent," she greeted formally. "Ambassador Karath," he replied. Their handshake was brief, proper, measured. No hesitation, no spectacle. The aide stepped forward immediately, launching into updates. "The Outer System representatives have requested emergency arbitration," one explained. "Security presence has increased near Sector 9, said the other. "Crisis first, everything else later." Vincent nodded, already shifting into strategic mode. "Take us to the briefing chamber." As they walked side by side, he felt it again, that strange balance between familiarity and newness. This wasn't distance anymore. This was proximity, real, immediate. The briefing was intense. Charts projected in midair, fleet movements mapped in glowing lines, resource disputes analyzed in sharp detail. "They accuse each other of corridor interference," Karath explained. "Both claim defensive action." "Classic escalation pattern," Vincent muttered. He stepped forward, studying the projection. "They're posturing," he concluded. "Neither wants full conflict." "You are certain?" she asked. "Not certain, but confident." Her ears tilted slightly inward. "Then we move quickly," she said. They did. Joint arbitrations were scheduled within hours. Vincent worked seamlessly beside her. Arguments aligned, strategies coordinated. Their rhythm returned faster than he expected, like it had been waiting. At one point, during a heated exchange between the rival representatives, one of them tried to test the rumor again. "Given your previous personal entanglements," the delegate said carefully, "how can we be assured of impartiality?" Vincent didn't flinch. "Because this corridor does not belong to us. It belongs to the systems relying on it." Karath added smoothly, "Our cooperation strengthens neutrality, not weakens it." Firm, unified, unshaken. The room quieted. After hours of negotiation, the immediate threat de-escalated. Temporary agreements were signed, patrol zones adjusted, communication channels reopened. Not peace, but stability. When the chamber finally emptied, silence settled around them. For the first time since his return, they were alone. "You adapted quickly," she said. "So did you." She studied him carefully. "You did not hesitate. Neither did I." The tension that had fueled the crisis slowly drained, leaving something quieter in its place. He stepped closer, not dramatically, just naturally. "No distance this time," he said softly. "No," she agreed. Her ears tilted inward gently. "It is different," she said. "Yes." "Harder." "Yes." "But also clearer." He smiled faintly. "That's exactly it." Proximity didn't erase complication. It amplified it. Now there were shared schedules, overlapping responsibilities, visible presence. No rumor shield, no light-year buffer. Just reality. "I have evaluated compatibility," she said suddenly. He blinked. "Oh?" "Yes." "And?" Her ears tilted fully inward, warm and steady. "Preliminary findings are positive." He laughed softly. "Preliminary?" "Ongoing analysis," she replied calmly. "I'll take it." Silence settled again. Not uncertain, not fragile. Solid. But even as the outer corridor stabilized, Vincent knew something deeper had shifted. Distance had tested intent. Crisis had tested unity. Now daily reality would test endurance. And endurance wasn't built in grand gestures. It was built in ordinary days. With crisis handled and proximity restored, can Vincent and Karath turn careful commitment into something lasting? Or will daily reality challenge them in unexpected ways?
The crisis near the corridor settled into routine monitoring. No explosions, no emergency summits, no dramatic rescues.
just steady cooperation. For the first time since Vincent had first arrived on the station months ago, there was something unfamiliar in his schedule. Normal days. Normal, it turned out, was its own challenge. No urgent distractions, no public scandal, no distance forcing discipline. Just shared space, shared work, shared silence. And that silence felt different now. It started small. Morning briefings where their shoulders almost brushed. Strategy sessions where their glances lasted a second longer than necessary. Evening walks around the observation ring that no longer needed excuses. The station no longer whispered about them. It had moved on. Diplomacy always did. But without external pressure, the real question finally surfaced. Not are we strong enough under scrutiny, but are we strong enough without it? One evening, after a long but calm negotiation review, Vincent found her in the observation ring. Of course she was there. She stood by the glass, hands folded behind her back, watching ships pass through the corridor they had fought to build. "You always end up here," he said gently. "And you follow," she replied without turning. "Pattern recognition," he smiled. She faced him then. Her ears were relaxed, open. "It has been 32 standard days since your return," she said. "That sounds like you've been tracking data." "I have." He stepped closer. "And your analysis?" She studied him carefully. "Proximity has not reduced clarity." He felt his chest tighten slightly. "Meaning?" "Meaning," she said slowly, "that what began accidentally has remained deliberate." The word hung between them. Deliberate. He nodded. "I didn't want this to survive just because of intensity," he said, "or shared crisis." "It has not," she replied. Silence stretched, not uncomfortable, just important. "You once asked if I regretted saying it," he said quietly. "Yes." "I didn't." "I know. But I've been thinking that maybe the mistake wasn't the word." Her ears tilted inward slightly. "It was the timing," she said. "Yes." He took another step closer, close enough now that the space between them felt intentional, not cautious. "I don't want the most important thing I ever say to you to be something that slipped out because I was exhausted," he said softly. Her expression shifted, subtle but unmistakable. "You prefer intention," she replied. "I do." A long pause. Then she said, "In my culture, a chosen bond is declared once, clearly, without audience." "No fire?" he asked gently. Her ears flicked inward. "No fire." He smiled faintly. "That's good." The station hummed quietly around them. Stars drifted beyond the glass. No witnesses, no politics, no translation fields amplifying mistakes, just two beings who had navigated scandal, distance, leverage, crisis, and waiting. Vincent exhaled slowly. "Kareth," he said, "not ambassador, not title, just her name." Her ears stilled completely. "When I said those words the first time, I didn't fully understand them." She didn't interrupt. "But now," he continued, voice steady, "I do." He held her gaze. "I choose you." No dramatic speech, no rehearsed poetry, just truth, clear, intentional. The silence that followed wasn't heavy, it was full. Her ears tilted inward, warm, steady, undeniable. "You understand the implications," she said softly. "Yes." Shared purpose, shared responsibility, shared consequence. "Yes." Distance may return. "I know." Crisis may rise again. "It will." She stepped closer until there was no space left between them. "In that case," she said calmly, "I choose you as well." No fireworks, no applause, no translation alerts, just a deliberate bond formed in quiet honesty. For a moment, neither moved. The universe outside continued as it always had. Ships moving, stars burning, civilizations negotiating. But something fundamental had shifted. Not because of accident, not because of exhaustion,
but because they had chosen it. Vincent let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "You know," he said softly, "this is a much better version of that moment." "Yes," she agreed. "Less catastrophic." "Considerably." He laughed quietly. Months ago, one careless phrase had nearly caused diplomatic disaster. Now, those same feelings had been rebuilt, carefully, tested by distance, strengthened by crisis, and sealed with intention. He had come to the station determined to control every word. He had learned, instead, that growth was not about perfect control. It was about choosing honesty when it mattered most. Behind them, the corridors shimmered with steady traffic, a path between worlds, built through negotiation, protected through trust. And in the reflection of the observation glass, two figures stood side by side, not by accident, not by pressure, but by choice. The universe did not stop this time. It did not go silent. It simply continued. And so did they. What began as one exhausted mistake became a deliberate promise, not because it was easy, not because it was dramatic, but because, when tested by distance, politics, and reality, they chose each other, clearly, carefully, and without fear. May this message strengthen your faith and renew your hope. Thank you for staying until the end. If this touched your heart, like, share, and subscribe to Astro Realms for more uplifting content. May God's blessings overflow in your life. See you soon.